to interrupt, but they're doing it actually in Notre Dame. They're teaching them mindfulness with the high schoolers, where Madison goes in the city.
Oh, good. That's
I don't know what
great.
kind of curriculum they're using, but they're doing it. So I hear about it a lot. It's happening in the schools because there's a lot going on, and the
Yeah.
children need to have a little more mental health and mindfulness, and helping them. A lot of them are struggling, just getting back on track. This was a difficult 2-year period, and Zoom was not helpful for most children, especially the young
Yeah.
ones. So it's very important we have what you're doing, and it's important. And I think, with that, I want you to just tell your story of your sister, Beth, because I think she's important in this, where
Yeah.
how we the suicide and the detriment,
Yeah.
and this happened years ago, and just tell that story, because I think it's important that
Absolutely.
college children who are
So,
out there who are stressed hear this and not do what
yeah.
because she it wasn't her fault, but just go over.
No, no. Yeah, I will. I'm happy to tell the story, even though it's a sad story. And thanks for asking. So, there's always there's multiple reasons that you go on a path, And so the reason Mission B wouldn't be what it is today without Monica. And none of us would be who we are today without our pain and without our suffering, and it wouldn't be today what it is today without Beth either. Because it's a collective, it's a number of things that got us to where we are today. And my sister played a really big part in me deciding to, the importance of this. And so Beth died on October 7th, 2003, really long time ago. And she was 23 years old. She was turning 23 that December, actually. So she was 22 when she died, but she was my younger sister. I'm the oldest of 7 children. Monica knows all my siblings. I think you've met every one of them at these events and stuff. You know my mom really well too. But my mom had 7 kids, and Beth was number 4. And she went to St. Joseph's High School. It was like an all-girls academy. And then she went to University of Rhode Island. And Beth studied communications, and she was doing great there. And after graduation, she went backpacking through Europe, which by herself, which I went with someone and I was still scared, just, I'm a little wimpy out there in the world. So she went back. She was so brave, right? Like, who would do that?
Chicken little backpack.
Exactly. So she backpacked through Europe, and then she got back and she realized summer's over, time to get a big girl job, my parents were really encouraging her to get a job. And she applied at some big communication places in the city. And she was going for interviews, and she was a little nervous, like all kids when they're 23, not like their kids, but all young people when they're 23, like everyone's nervous for their first job interview, right? And so she was a little nervous. And that same week, she found a baby bird. And I know we all love animals. Monica and I love animals, but she found a baby bird on Main Street, and she took it to the animal shelter. And they're like, well, we're going to euthanize it. So if you want to keep it alive, you have to feed it every hour on the hour. So not many people would do this, but Beth was like, okay. So she fed the baby bird every hour on the hour, set her alarm on her phone throughout the whole night, every night for like a week. And then had these interviews, and she went to her physician. And I think one of the jobs had offered her like a possible position, but she had to get like some sort of like a test or something, she had to go to the doctor. So she went to the doctor, I think it was like a TB, or I don't know. So she went to the doctor to get for an appointment. And he was like, how are you doing? And she's like, well, I'm really nervous. Like, I have all these job interviews, and I've been taking care of this baby bird all week, and I can't sleep. And he was like, oh, well, try this drug Paxil. It will help you sleep. Now, I just want to preface this by saying, this drug does help many people, but in a percentage of them, somewhere between I forget, 3 and 10% of people, depending on the age group that they do the research on, experience a side effect called akathisia. And basically, they get too much serotonin in their brain, which creates a psychotic, disassociative state. And they can't distinguish being awake from being asleep. And at the time that Beth died, literally the week she died, I know for a fact, it was banned. They weren't even allowed to prescribe the drug to children in Suffolk County. I worked in the foster care system at the time as a casework supervisor, or maybe was I a clinician? I don't remember. But a letter went out to my boss, and I didn't see the letter because I wasn't a psychiatrist, but said like, we don't recommend children receiving Paxil. And then I think in like Canada and England, there was like a big issue with them going on because the suicide rates went up. So Beth was on Paxil for a week. And I saw her 5th day on it, and I prayed over her because she was like, I just don't feel right. I don't feel myself. And she was so like, we were at a baby shower and she was trying to ice a cupcake and she couldn't get the icing like on the cupcake. She was like missing the cupcake. So it's called, I think, psychomotor retardation, like an inability to like move. I don't know if it's still called that. I'm an old clinician, not a current one, but like she couldn't get the icing on the cake. So the cupcake, I was like, okay. So I prayed over her and I was like, are you okay? And I in my prayer, I got that she was suicidal, but that didn't make any sense because she wasn't acting suicidal. So I asked her, I was like, are you suicidal? And she was like, I would never do that. Why would you ask me that? I was like, I don't know. I just had like a weird feeling. And then 2 days later, she committed suicide. And it was traumatic. It was horrible. My mom and my little brother found her hanging in the hallway. And if you see a picture of Beth, I should go run and get one, but I think I have it on my phone.
You'll send it and we'll incorporate it.
Oh, we'll send it and put it up. Okay, yeah, I don't want to be distracted. But if you see a picture of her, like she was so beautiful and innocent and good natured and gentle, like she would never commit a violent act like that. So we knew it had to be the drug. And we called my uncle, who's a really good like researcher. He's not a lawyer, but he's like a lawyer, like he's super smart and he knows everything. He's like, oh, let me study the law. And he found out about that Paxil does this to people. And it's a horrible drug, really. If you just Google like Paxil divorce, like people claim they got divorced because, I know that sounds crazy.
Technically, it wasn't even a candidate for it. So
it was an off-label use. So what happens is when they did her autopsy report, they found that she had taken 10 milligrams a day for 7 days, but apparently like 5 milligrams were being metabolized all at once, they suspected, something like that. So it was supposed to be controlled release, but it wasn't releasing. So instead of it like releasing slowly, it was releasing all at the same time. And so we went to FDA hearings and we spoke and we tried to like fight to get our voices heard. And we helped get black box warning labels issued on all antidepressant drugs, which is like extremely David and Goliath because it was just us and like a couple other families and doctors and lawyers that were fighting. But my mom is like a very strong advocate against injustice. And it was her daughter. So she was like, no, the mama bear came out and that was it. Like
not having girls might do the same thing.
Oh yes, you would. Yeah.
Something happens to them. No, watch out. Step aside.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. Yeah. So people are, to me, it wasn't enough accountability. Like I feel that there's not enough data to support, in my opinion, that this is effective in children because if it works for some kids, that's good. But if other kids commit suicide, it's not good. Like find a better way, find another drug. It should be a last resort, not the first thing you prescribe, like if somebody's feeling anxious or having sleep, like, are you exercising? Are you doing yoga? Are you meditating? Are you going for walks? Are you watching funny movies? Like, but they're so quick to whip out their prescription pad and say, oh, just try this antidepressant without even seeing a clinician. And I know from being a former clinician that it takes a lot of work to assess someone. It's not just you walk into a doctor's office, you should be able to get a mind altering drug,
They just hand it to you like it's candy. And I'm like, no, you really, this is the reality of, we should really be smarter and really look into things. Don't start taking, for everybody listening, you just don't take, if the doctor gives you a subscription to any kind of pill, make sure you know what you're taking. I mean, I watch these commercials and the list of things on I wouldn't even touch the half of the drugs they live. I don't even take anything because I'm afraid to take things. So I think just be mindful that, why are you taking this? Because it's those things are very addicting. They're addicting. Like you take Xanax, they wanted to give that 9/11, they were pushing like a drug person, like they were trying to give me all these drugs and I didn't, thank God, but they were pushing them on. I think that that's the way to do it, but it's really not. I didn't want to be numb. I wanted to feel the pain. I didn't want to have to, because it's weird to feel these things. Even a half of it was enough to throw me over the edge. So I think it's important that those who are listening don't just take, if the doctor gives it, just don't say, oh, because he's a doctor, he or she, that it's okay. It's not always okay. You have to really do your research. There's other homeopathic things you can do. Mine was wine. I was very happy to do that thing. Eastern European, you can drink your wine and not feel, it was better that I did that instead of popping the pills. So I was happy I had my wine.
That's great.
It's all good.
Really, the pills it's just that, like, when you go for, like, if you break your knee, you go to a specialist that specializes in knee surgery. You don't go to your primary care. Like, I personally don't believe that primary care physicians, this is just my personal opinion, should be prescribing psychiatric medication. I think that's the job of a psychiatrist. And because psychiatrists know the drugs, they know the risks, they know this could cause this, and they warn them appropriately. And there's a place for psychiatry, like in schizophrenia. That's a specific mental disorder that requires medication because it's organic in the brain. It's a disease that there's no cure. But, like, I used to work at a school. I remember a kid, their dog died and they went on antidepressants. Like, if your dog dies, you want to feel, like you were saying, like in 9/11, you wanted to feel the pain. That's how we heal. We heal through our grief. You don't want to, and some of these kids are necessary.
You can't mask your grief. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You need to feel it. Otherwise, you never will deal with it. You have to be alert for it and understanding what happened and do those necessary things to try to heal and, about it and go to therapy. And it's true, a doctor should not be prescribing anything. You should always get an evaluation. I mean, even when anything, they're supposed to do a whole test thing. It's a whole eval.
Right.
Make sure, because a lot of people say they have this, but they don't have it.
Right. They might think they have something, but then this. Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the miraculous stories. So I'm going to start with the miraculous story about the day Beth died, because I think even in the midst of the deepest moment of devastation, like, we are loved and guided by the angels. And so, and then I want to talk about the dog. If we can we talk about the dog?
So talk first about that, because I know you have something at 12:30, right? And 15.
Well, I was preparing for it. It doesn't produce a sharp end. Okay, so the day my sister died, my mother was driving. She was working at a coffee shop. She had raised 7 kids, so she was just like, I better get a job after they all left. So she was leaving work, and she said her mother had died in the 90s. And she said she was driving the car, and all of a sudden she smelled her mother's perfume so strong, and she felt like her mother was in the car with her. She said it was so powerful. She had no idea Beth was going to die. She was just leaving work. And she said she felt her, that she had to pull over on the side of the road, and she was sobbing. And she said it's the strongest she ever felt her mother. And that was around the moment of my sister's death. And then my father, at the same time, so my mom was in Babylon and my dad was like a little bit further west, and he was driving on the southern state. And my grandpa Joe died, and he was like in the military. So he's buried in this like military ground. And my dad, he died in 1977 when I was 3. And my dad never went to his father's grave. Just because he doesn't like graves, I guess. It's just like, he loves his dad, he just doesn't like that. I mean, I go to the graveyard and pray, but he was like, I'm going to go today. So he went to the grave and he knelt down. He knew Beth was having a hard time sleeping, so he said a prayer for that. And then he picked a blade of grass and like put it in his pocket, and he checked his clock and it was 1:10. And that was like the estimated time of her death. So he was at his father's grave, and I could cry saying this, like, with his dad, like he was there. And then my mom was with her mom on the side of the road, like, and our parents never leave us. Like, your father's not with you physically, but he's always with you, and I know you feel him. And I feel like when we grieve, like, and so when my sister, after the wake and the funeral, or like, I'm sorry, after the wake, between the wake and the funeral, we had to close the casket at the end that morning before we went to the church. And my dad took the little blade of grass. He's such a good dad. Like, my dad's such a good man. And he took the little blade out of his pocket. And me and my mom and the 6 of us, the kids, were around. And he told us the story about his dad and put the blade of grass in her wreath of flowers that she was wearing. And it was like, just so powerful to know that, like, even though we lose people we love, like, they never really leave us, and I feel that for you and your dad, and for Michael and for Beth, like we get signs all the time from our angels. So that's one story that I just wanted to share, because when we hear the tragic story and then we hear like about the sorry. Oh, the cloud. Oh, where do I have that painting? Oh, that's true. So I have this picture, and I'll send you this. My father loves this. He gives this to everyone. If he sees you, he'll give you one. Did he give you one yet? Like the cloud? I got to get you a copy. I'll get you a copy. But on the card, my dad has these cards that say gratitude is the attitude, because gratitude is the medicine for sadness. Science shows that. And it says Beth Winter. And then on the other side, there's a picture of a cloud. And my brother Jeffrey, like shortly after Beth died, was in her room, and he took a picture out the window, and he later zoomed in on it, and it looks like the side profile of her face with a wreath of flowers. And then in the wreath of flowers, it looks like Jesus's face. I don't know if I told you that part, but it's just beautiful. And I feel like we get these, we're only on earth for a short while. We're not here forever, 85 years if we're lucky. And so my personal belief, and when I talk about God and spirituality, I'm not talking on behalf of MissionBe, because they're a secular organization. But for me personally, we don't die, we go on to heaven, and that I feel like our loved ones can communicate with us from that place, and they do. And Monica and I, when we first met, we were like, goosebumps again. Like we had so much of that going on, which is beautiful.
That is good, and they are powerful. They're powerful souls, and if you just pay attention to them, and they want to be with you. They want to send you signs. I mean, I get so many signs, and I'm blessed. I thank God every day for the signs I get. Thank God for my faith. I thank God for giving me the strength to survive this nightmare. I was given a gift. Michael was a gift. He was a precious soul, and have been given that gift. It was an angel, to me. And I know they were all handpicked that day, like Beth was as well. Like they're all angels. They're just amazing souls, and they powerful souls. And when you do want something, they send you signs. I mean, I've never had so many signs in my life. So now he's, of course, the show off soul, because he's a show off. And now my dad's because he died 2 years ago. Now he's becoming a little bit of a show off. He's actually my cat running around. So it's like, I'm like, all right, get out of the cat. Everybody likes to go on the cat. I go, what am I? I was like, get out of the cat. The cat. I'm like, oh, no. But it sounds crazy, but it's really true. They do things.
I love it. Yeah, animals are sensitive to
very spiritual, and spirits do like to go in animals. Like, and thinking about your sister, she took care of that little bird. She saved that soul, and and they're living creatures. Those are God's creatures. And then thank God she went. I always say Michael did a lot in his 37 years, and I'm grateful that I only had him 2 years, but grateful that he was able to do all those things. He traveled, he had a life, he lived it, he enjoyed it. And, like she was traveling Europe by herself. So she had done something. So thank God, because, I'm always grateful that they had a life, because, they've enjoyed it. And they know things that we don't know. It's interesting how it works, but it's so sad that she didn't get to finish it, but she's watching, and she's over you guys, blessing you. And, we're lucky to have those angels around us.
They're definitely around us for sure, 100%. And we think that everyone sees the world in this way, but not everybody does. And it's such a gift that that's we are able to feel their presence.
It is a gift. It is, you're honored. Like, I always tell people, I didn't create the memorial. The memorial was created by God. I was his little humble servant, Holy Spirit. Whatever they want to, as I just did things I didn't even know I was doing. I was like a walking zombie at that point. So for me, I give credit to God, because without God, that would have never happened. There's no way that I did that.
But he definitely like works through people, and he works for you 100%. And our logo, we have to send them the MissionBe logo. So your logo was and this is so funny, because this is another miraculous story. So I didn't know what the MissionBe logo was going to be. And then I like prayed about it for days, and I couldn't even come up with a name for the company. I was like, I don't know what name I'm going to have it. And then I went for a walk in the woods, and I prayed to Beth actually. And I was like, Beth, help me with the name. And all of a sudden I heard like in my head, MissionBe. And I was like, MissionBe. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great name. And then I was like, but listen, it's MissionBe. Like it was under, it's part 2 of September's mission, right? So it's September's MissionBe, and then be present, like be in the present moment, which is our mission. And then Beth, the first 2 letters of her name are BE and then TH, but MissionBe. So it's like, it brought together all of that in one name. And then I was like, oh, now I have to make a logo. Oh my God. And then I was looking at your logo and I was like, it's the towers with the heart in the center. So I was like, well, we're under September's mission. We should be like a mini them. So then I made the earth behind it. Like we changed it. We made like the earth with the heart and the thing. And then we made the yellow rose coming out of the A because we found a yellow rose on the beach. And so I feel like that's all beautiful.
That's how it comes about. That because I was going back and forth to DC in the beginning, and I drew that on the Excel train on a piece of paper with lines, and it came to me, like God speaks to you that way. He's like, all right, here's the logo, put it together, get it done. And I'm like, ooh, what?
Wow.
Like it's amazing. I just scribbled it on a lined piece of paper on the Excel.
Wow.
DC. I'll never forget. I have it somewhere. My original drawing, because the bottom is the earth. The underneath the little.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Get out of here. So then I put the earth in the background, not even knowing that.
Global. It's supposed to be global. It's September.
That's what I was thinking too. That wait, that's so weird. How do we not figure this out? I mean, how did I not know that the bottom was the earth?
Well, I knew that. You just didn't know.
Yeah, you knew that, but it's so weird that we also put the earth.
Mm-hmm. And then it was exciting because we, and I would like to do it again. We had the wine. We were the only organization allowed to use the American flag on wine bottles because you're not allowed.
No way.
Leave cellars to Long Island, but then they closed down. But anybody who wants to do wine, I have approval to do the American flag with my logo on wine, which is
my goodness,
approved by the feds.
That could be a really good MissionBe fundraiser, especially with all the people that are feeling super patriotic.
Another wine person to come out, leave cellars. If anybody wants to make wine, we used to have Chardonnay, Merlot, and white Pinot. So we have all the labels, and then people would buy them for like $9.11 or $29.11. It was all 9/11.
That would be really cool if you found, because there's so many vineyards like on the North Fork and the South Fork, like maybe on the way to Montauk, there's one you could stop at with like a little I'm sorry, I'm brainstorming ideas now, but like with a little thing, like that would be so cool. Like Pindar.
I have labels still left to use. It's great. It's exciting because that's a very unique thing. July 4th is coming. We are able to use the flag, and it's sold out. I mean, we never had a problem selling it. So that's the good. We have good wine and a good label and a good cause. It's a win-win. So.
That's amazing. I wanted to talk a little bit about Tammy and then the dog story. Do you want to tell those 2 stories, or should we save those for another time?
No, well, tell the dog story. We'll save Tammy.
We could do a whole thing on Tammy and Ruth Mayer. Okay, so my Uncle Kerry, who survived the Trade Center, who was best friends with Michael, him and his wife, Nancy, have a son named Quinn. They have 3 boys, but anyway, one of their boys, so Nancy has a picture of Michael right by the door, and she would say, "Good morning, Michael," to the picture sometimes, because Nancy always talks to angels too. And so Quinn, but the boys would be like, "Mom, why do you talk to pictures?" You know how teenage, like middle school boys are or whatever, or like just boys, like, why do you talk to pictures? So she was like, "Stop." And then that morning, Quinn said to Michael's picture, "Good morning, Michael." And Nancy was like, "Oh my God, I love you." And she gave him a big hug. And then he went off to school. And previously he was being like, being challenged by one of the kids in his class. And Nancy almost got him moved to a different class. But anyway, this young boy brought in a police dog, Officer Morales. He's lives in New Jersey, I think, but he is a New York City police officer. And this has been a while, so let me know if I get anything wrong, but I think I have the whole story down pat. So Officer Morales was doing a presentation in the class with his police dog, like a German Shepherd, and he was saying like all of what he does for his job and everything else. And all of a sudden, he's like, "The dog's name is Eichen, and all the dogs are named after people that died in the World Trade Center." And then Quinn was like, "Wait, is it?" He raised his hand. He's like, "Is that Michael Eichen?" And then Officer Morales was like, "Yes, And then Quinn goes, that was my daddy's best friend. I feel like I'm gonna cry. Like, it's just so intense. He's like, that was my daddy's best friend. And then Officer Morales gets down on one knee, and his eyes were like filled with tears. The teacher was crying because it was just a moving moment. And he says, I've been looking for this family for a long time, Michael's family, and I want to give you this bracelet. So he had a bracelet on. I guess it had like Icon on it, or Michael's name. And he took the bracelet and put it on Quinn's wrist. And that's the story. And then I called out Monica because Nancy called me, and then I called Monica. I'm like, oh my goodness, you're not going to believe this story. And then so Monica connected with Officer Morales, right? And
now the dog is retired, and now he's going to be featured, that story, because there's a few of them in the Museum of 9/11. So that's exciting.
That's amazing. See, I didn't even know that. That's amazing.
A whole thing on the canines who are named after loved ones. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was just like so meant to be that Quinn met him. And it's just so amazing that he said, good morning, Michael. Like that, it's like reinforcing that whole thing. And so yeah, and it's just a beautiful thing that, future generations, like I know Mike Dempsey has the 9/11 Education Trust, and one of their goals is to like teach kids in the future about 9/11. And I think the memorial does that, like that memorial that
now we're actually the memorial will be now facilitating that curriculum, and all schools will be mandated to teach it. That's what's happening soon.
Wow.
It's already being implemented as we sit here. So
that's amazing. So
they could choose to do it or not, the teachers. So
yeah,
some schools did not do it. So now it will be mandated curriculum. So they're actually defining that curriculum as right now. So that's good. I don't know when it's going to be implemented. I think it's going to be implemented for this year, but we'll see.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah. So I think that the legacy of that is important, and the people and the faces and the museum itself. And I know that it wouldn't be what it is today without your advocacy and standing up, because they wanted to build corporations. And I remember
they didn't want to give any acreage, zero. They were going to put a monument in between the buildings. They wanted to originally put it in Battery Park or Governor's Island. And I was like, there's no way, especially since I don't have remains. I mean, there was 80,000 remains found in that bathtub, which is where the two towers stand and where the Marriott used to stand, where the PATH station was. So there was no way I was building over dead people. And the same thing in Surfside. You're not building. A lot of those remains are in that space too, where the second building imploded. So, when they imploded it, there were a lot of remains that went into the earth. So the same thing, you don't build over dead people. We don't do that here in America or anywhere. When we found out there was a African burial ground downtown and somebody was building on it, they had to move. You don't,
they should
honor those souls, and we don't build over dead people. Thank God every day I have a place to go to honor my husband, because I don't have he's not with me. I don't have a place for him. So for me, he's there. Even though he's with me, he's at that memorial. And that's where I'm happiest, because I know he's with me there. And you've experienced that, where it was sunny. It's been sunny there every 20 years. I've never had rain at the memorial, and anytime it rained. So remember when we went, and my daughter called me on the anniversary before the pandemic. Yeah. And it's sunny. We go to the museum, it's all sunny. And then my daughter Bass is like, Mom, is it raining there? I'm like, because she knows my story. She's like, it's raining uptown, downtown, in Jersey, Westchester. I'm like, well, it's not raining here. And she goes, I can't. She's just,
that's amazing.
How is that possible? I said, because that's how the spirits work. The energy in that place is powerful. And the world-class Memorial Museum, powerful place. And we got to get more people to go there and realize the power of that space, what it does for us and how it heals and how it helps us, which I hope the same thing happens for Surfside, which I'm helping them with.
Absolutely.
And now with this horrible war going on, I pray for those souls too. I don't know. It's just so
Ukraine
disturbing. I don't even know. It's horrible. I just pray every day for them. And, I just think about all those lives being lost for no reason.
For nothing, just because of a violent leadership and a violent philosophy, and just violence is never the answer. Hatred is never the answer. Love is always the answer.
Love and light. So next time we'll talk about Tammy and the Ruth.
Yes.
Painting.
Yeah, Tammy and Ruth. We have other stories too that we didn't get to, but I just want to end by saying that if it wasn't for you, Monica, and for your vision and for your encouragement and for your support and being helping MissionBe come to life, we wouldn't be what we are today. And that I'm very grateful that for everything you did, taking MissionBe in and being September's Mission, being and still being our big sister and guiding us. And I'm just very, very grateful for you and for your presence, and also for like the way you're just so funny and like, we do tough stuff. Like not everything we do is fun. Like half the time we're filling out tax forms and faxing paper, but you always just bring the love and light. You bring the joy and the funniness and the good humor and the wisdom, and I appreciate that so much. So thank you.
I appreciate you, and I'm glad you're doing all that work, because I remember what it was like when I was doing it. Because I'm like a one-woman show. I was doing it myself the whole time. It's a lot. So I'm too tired. I'm exhausted.
I'm tired too. I left my house at 7:30 yesterday morning, and I finished my online course. By the time I left the office, it was 10:30 at night. I was like, I gotta take a nap now, but it was time to go to sleep.
That was in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was living, breathing, eating 9/11. I mean, that was all I did.
Yeah.
It is.
And if you didn't do that work, we wouldn't be able to do ours. Like it's all interconnected, like that passion that you felt and the mission, it was accomplished. Like that memorial will be there when we're all dead and gone. Like it's going to go from generation to generation to generation. And that's really such a beautiful legacy. And what you're doing now with this podcast is really important, getting out the word and telling miraculous stories and sharing the GodStar energy that you talk about, which I love, the GodStar.
So the podcast is going to feature more of my like love and light, the faith part of my mission. And then this is more YouTubing channel to September's Mission Foundation to share stories of people I feel are important to tell their stories. So it's not just all my faith, but it's, ties into it. I mean, we've all been affected by 9/11 in some capacity. So anyone who comes on is going to be able to tell that story at some point and how they felt about that day, and and what they're doing in their lives to make this world a better place. We have an obligation to the future generations, to our girls, my girls, to all the children who are suffering, and to bring love and light back to them, and let them know that we're here, that we're powerful GodStars, soul sisters, and disciples, and we're sinners. It's okay. I always tell people, not a perfect being,
100%.
but that's okay. God accepts us all. And I think
He does accept us all. Everyone's doing the best I can. That's how I always look at people, and I think that's really, really important work. I love the 9/11 thing. I love the GodStars. I love the podcast. And
once upon a time.
Once upon a time, here we are. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Carin Winter, you're a pleasure. You're a beautiful soul. You have God and love and light all around you. And I'm so grateful to you and all the work you do to help our little ones and our future, because we need you.